Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The wildfires continue to rage in the Okanagan. We have an update from a radio announcer in Kelowna, BC. Lethbridge College received a huge federal funding boost to the tune of $1.3 million. We will explain what the money will be going towards. And the Lethbridge Hurricanes announced the full regular season schedule. We will have details about who the Canes will be taking on for their home opener.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. There are more than 250 wildfires still burning across BC, including a number of them in the Okanagan Valley. The interior of BC is where many Albertans like to go for their summer holidays, but right now may not be the best time. Joining me is Stephen KEPPLER. He's a radio announcer at Move FM in Kelowna and Penticton, and has an update as to the wildfire situation. Stephen, how is the air quality in your region right now?
I could give you a statistic on how it really is, but if you just look behind me, it's not very good at all. We can't really see across the lake right now. We're situated here in downtown Kelowna, and normally you can see across the lake and then a bit further, but I mean, if you walk outside, it smells like campfire immediately. So the air quality just, I mean, we don't even look at the index at this point because the winds change so fast here that the air quality can change on a dime. So just take a look outside. It's just like a campfire. I mean, we were choking on it this morning a little bit. And even a few of us here at the radio station were a little dizzy even when we walked in. That's kind of an idea of how the air quality is. It differs, though, from town to town, city to city. Penticton, where some of the wildfires are near, was actually clear at about 5:30 this morning. So, again, with the way the winds are in the Okanagan, it can change very fast.
Now, do you have an update on the wildfire situation? Are many of the wildfires still out of control?
Yeah, there's about 4 to 5 in the region. And I would say almost all of them are out of control. We're doing our best to follow the dashboard with the BC Wildfire Service, and they're doing their best to battle the wildfires, but things can change so fast here. We just brought in 98 wildfire fighters from Mexico, and that's going to provide a lot of help for us. But even the Inkameep wildfire, that's kind of the main one that everyone's monitoring because that one's making its way southeast in the region. And we're all keeping a close eye on that. Now, it is moving away from, say, Osoyoos and Oliver, but it is making its way towards Grand Forks. So you really need to monitor that one. And everyone's just kind of on alert.
Thanks so much, Stephen. That was Stephen KEPPLER, radio announcer at Move FM, joining us from Kelowna, BC. By the way, we just received word that 34 Australian firefighters have arrived in BC to help battle the blazes. More than 3,500 people are now involved in fighting the fires across the province. The Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen has just declared a local state of emergency and issued an evacuation order for many properties in response to the Thomas Creek wildfire burning near Okanagan Falls, south of Penticton. Meanwhile, in the north, by Kamloops, BC, more than 20 evacuation orders have been sent out. On the west side, in the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary, they have an evacuation order for 184 properties near the Mishad Creek fire, which still poses a potential threat to public safety. As for the Columbia Shuswap Regional District, it has partially rescinded an evacuation order near Sicamous, but it remained in effect for a number of properties. Meanwhile, California's largest wildfire has destroyed a number of buildings and is threatening hundreds more. The Dixie wildfire has grown to over 190,000 acres, with more than 5,000 firefighters and personnel fighting the fire. U.S. correspondent Lisa Daftari, who's in California, has an update for us.
Over the weekend, a smaller fire and a more massive one kind of united, they merged. That's why you're seeing that, that big chaotic fire that's only 21%. That's why I guess the percentage of containment, I should say, went down because they weren't able to get this in time before it merged. But we are thinking about all the firefighters out there. We hope that the weather stays cooler so that it does not get worse and so that they're able to put this out sooner rather than later.
Lisa Daftari will also discuss how the Taliban is spreading its wings in Afghanistan as U.S. troops are pulling out. She'll have details coming up in the second half of our program. Alberta Environment and Parks Minister Jason NIXON was in Lethbridge County to announce provincial funding to the tune of over $28 million for a new renewable fuel facility in our city. As Micah Quinn reports now, this new initiative will buy more than $375 million worth of local feedstock from farmers.
The Technology, Innovation, and Emissions Reduction Fund is helping to create a new facility through the company Canary Biofuels.
So what we're doing at the facility is we're upgrading the facility so we can handle all different types of feedstocks, including used cooking oil, off-grade types of canola oil, animal fats from renderers, distillers corn oil that comes out of the ethanol refineries. So we're adding a chemical train, a distillation column, and some unique technology in the middle that helps allow us to have a really high efficiency in terms of taking all that feedstock and converting it into biodiesel and glycerin.
$500 million will be generated in revenue throughout the facility, and it will also cut down on 224,000 tons of emissions per year.
This facility will support up to 130 local jobs, getting our construction workers, engineers, lab technicians, and plant operators back to work when it is needed most. This facility will be the first of its kind in Canada, with its flagship facility right here in Alberta.
The Alberta government committed $750 million for emissions reductions through the TIER Fund, which will support around 9,000 jobs and put in $1.9 billion into the Alberta economy.
But overall, to the county, it's just a positive thing. It's just great to have another industry come in, and one that also reduces the emissions. So hopefully these products could be used in farm machinery and help all over. I mean, anytime you could reduce emissions, that's the way to go. But for all of us, it's just a great benefit.
The facility is expected to be up and running by October of this year. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
This has been a very tough summer for many of our farmers, with drought conditions felt across the prairies. Alberta's Minister of Agriculture, Devin Tereshan, says crop insurance payouts in Alberta will likely reach $1 billion this year due to the hot and dry weather. Adjusters have already helped farmers submit around 300 claims for losses. Close to 400 additional farmers and ranchers have enrolled in crop, pasture, and forage insurance. Around 1,400 farmers increased their level of insurance coverage this year. The fresh taste of Taper corn is back for another season. Johnson Fresh Farms began selling cobs in Lethbridge on Monday. The warm, dry temperatures allowed farmers to start harvesting corn early. Currently, they're selling their peaches and cream corn, which is a little more on the sweet side. Local producer James Johnson says if the heat continues throughout August, corn may only be around until early September.
No, if this heat sticks around, it just ripens everything too fast. So we have historically things staged out to get us to, the September long and into September, mid to end September. But, if this heat and if it sticks around, we'll finish much sooner than that.
If you'd like to try some corn, you can find locations at various stands across the province by visiting their website or on the Johnson Fresh Farm social media sites. When you go to the polls this October for the municipal election, another question has been added to the ballot. City Council has voted 6-3 to place a question regarding whether Lethbridge should prioritize plans for a possible third traffic bridge crossing the Oldman River prior to 2030. The Chinook Trail River crossing was included as part of the 2022 through 2031 capital improvement program and is currently set for a $4 million preliminary design in 2027. That is outside of the 4-year approval window, meaning the project will go back to Council at the next CIP deliberations. Over the past few weeks, the City of Lethbridge has heard many concerns about the aesthetics and upkeep of city parks and open spaces. Council voted 5-4 on Tuesday to reinvest $100,000 back into the parks budget for the remainder of the year. In November of last year, Council cut the parks budget by just over $590,000 annually. The original resolution was split after a motion to divide proposed by Councillor Rob Miyashiro and carried 6-3. Part 2 was defeated in a 6-3 motion. It would have added $404,500 back to the parks budget in the year 2022. Lethbridge College received a huge financial boost today to its applied research activities and programs. A total of more than $1.3 million was awarded as part of 2 grants through the Canada Foundation for Innovation. Over $410,000 will be given to Mike McCready, who is the President's Applied Research Chair in Virtual and Augmented Reality. This money will go towards his work in the START initiative.
But for example, one of them will be a more advanced motion capture studio. So we have some motion capture equipment at the college that we're working on another VR project, but we'll be able to develop a more advanced motion capture studio that we'll be able to use with our research. But also our goal with this initiative is to be able to provide access to organizations and businesses to this technology. So maybe you're a video company, a film company, and you want to add in some motion capture into your film. Potentially we'll be looking at how we could have those organizations access this hardware that we're purchasing as part of this grant.
Over $930,000 was also given to the college's Advanced Pro Harvest Technology Center to round out the funding. A project that started in 2007 by the City of Lethbridge is making another comeback this summer. The Yellow Fish Road is a project where volunteers hit the city streets to paint yellow fish symbols above storm drains as a simple reminder to only let rainwater enter them. The city's wastewater outreach specialist says contaminated water can have a severe effect on the ecosystem.
Our storm drains are not connected to a treatment plant, so the wastewater treatment plant. They actually go directly to the river. So anything that we put down there goes directly to the Old Man River and then downstream from here. Anything other than rainwater is a type of pollution. So anything from oil, gas, high contents of dirt, garbage, anything like that, that ends up in the aquatic environment, which limits the environment in which the species live, like fish. So increasing temperatures or increasing water temperatures and increasing bad things within their habitat. And so that's something that we want to try to prevent if we can.
For more details on the project or to sign up to volunteer, visit the City of Lethbridge website. The Lethbridge Hurricanes, in conjunction with the Western Hockey League, announced their regular season schedule. The Canes will play 68 games this season and will open their campaign on Friday, October 1st, when they welcome the Calgary Hitmen to the EDMAC Centre. The schedule will see the Hurricanes play all 68 games within the Eastern Conference against Central and East Division opponents. Training camp begins on September the 8th, and their first preseason game will take place September 17th when they welcome the Medicine Hat Tigers. You know, when I worked the Calgary 88 Winter Olympics, the hundreds of volunteers who worked the games helped to make it a huge success. Volunteering has helped so many communities over the years, including right here in Lethbridge. Volunteer Lethbridge pre-screens candidates for a number of organizations in our city, creating a win-win scenario for everyone involved. The group's executive director, Amanda JENSEN, explains.
It just makes it so much easier for the volunteer to move more freely within the community, and reducing a strain on the Lethbridge Police Service with criminal record checks, etc. So it's just a win-win for everybody.
Amanda JENSEN will also discuss how the recent pandemic impacted volunteerism. She'll have details in an interview with Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our newscast. The City of Calgary and the ownership group of the Calgary Flames have agreed to chip in an extra $12.5 million for a new arena after the initial cost of the project ballooned by around $60 million. The city is also still required to foot the bill for other items it agreed to when it signed the original deal for the building, such as flood mitigation. Council will debate the dollar figures for those items this week. The arena is now projected to cost $608.5 million. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says it is up to the federal government whether to create a vaccine passport for international travel. He says if it does, he will not balk at that. As for Ontario, Ford says he does not believe in certification system.
I've always said right from the get-go, first of all, everyone has certification with the vaccine when they get it. Right. But as for a passport, that's up to the federal government. And I'm sure they're working on it. They're working on it across the country if someone's traveling. But again, that's up to the government. I think I've been pretty clear. And our Chief Medical Officer of Ontario, Dr. Moore, it's just not needed. So we're going to have people 80%, hopefully fully vaccinated, and we just don't need it. I don't believe in it. I know Israel tried that and it failed.
Well, it is now official. Inuk leader Mary Simon has been installed as Canada's 30th Governor General. She's the first Indigenous person to fill the role and says reconciliation is a way of life that requires getting to know one another.
We have learned as a country that we need to learn the real history of Canada. Embracing this truth makes us stronger as a nation, unites Canadian society, and teaches our kids that we must always do our best, especially when it is hard. The discoveries of unmarked graves on the grounds of residential schools in recent weeks has horrified me, along with all Canadians. A lot of people think that reconciliation will be completed through projects and services. All Canadians deserve access to services. My view is that reconciliation is a way of life and requires work every day. Reconciliation is getting to know one another.
Canada's Seniors Minister was warned that the Liberal government's plan to send $500 payments to pensioners in August would end with some of the money going to people who died. But Seniors Minister Deb Schultz said the government will not seek to recoup any deposits made to the deceased. It is apparently not unheard of for federal benefits to flow to someone after their death, which is then followed up by collection calls from Service Canada. As the drought worsens across much of the West and North America, cattle ranchers are among those feeling the pain. In Colorado, a third-generation rancher fears he will have to sell off half of his beef cattle if he cannot harvest enough hay to feed them due to the drought.
We raise mother cows that have calves, and we sell the calves in the fall. The winters were a lot longer and more snow than we've had in the past few years. We need good rains at the end of May, good rains in June, and usually a good rain about the first part of July, which we have not had for the last 2 years. Without those rains, there's no moisture in the ground and the grass just doesn't grow.
Our soil moisture profile is very depleted from water. Then that snow starts to melt in the spring, it goes into the soil. It doesn't run off. That's why we see stream flows today 10% of average.
The biggest uncertainty is whether or not we're going to have enough hay to support the cattle herd. And if we don't have enough hay to support the cattle herd, then more cows are going on the truck.
The last victim of the Florida condo collapse has been identified. Ike Hedaya told reporters that his sister Estelle Hedaya was the final person to be pulled from the rubble. The mayor of Miami-Dade confirmed that all victims have now been identified.
The last remaining missing person has now been accounted for and identified, and the family notified. "98 victims have now been identified, including 97 victims who were recovered from the collapse and one person who passed away in the hospital. Although we have identified all of the victims that were reported missing, the Miami-Dade Police Department continues the ongoing search and recovery effort on the evidentiary pile to ensure that all identifiable human remains are recovered.
Samaritan's Purse is helping devastated homeowners in Detroit, Michigan recover from massive flooding. Volunteers are still urgently needed to help in cleanup efforts and to share the love of Christ to those affected by the recent storm.
Hi, I'm Matt Campbell with Samaritan's Purse Disaster Relief, and we're here responding to the flood damage in the Detroit metro area. At the end of June, they received up to 7 inches of rain over a short time frame, which caused mass flooding. That water rose in the basements up to 4 feet in some of these homes, but not only storm water, but it also has septic water in it as well, causing a lot of not only mold issues, but also sanitation issues. Samaritan's Purse is here removing sheetrock, taking out wood paneling, removing carpet, and also we're going to be sanitizing with shockwave treatment to help minimize mold growth and help sanitize so bacteria won't be an issue for that homeowner in the future. The needs here are vast and they continue to grow. What we really need is your all's prayers and support. And as the volunteers go out, we encourage you to come out and serve alongside of us as we show them how much we love them and how much Christ loves them. So please be in prayer as we go out and serve this community in the coming weeks.
Great to see the work they're doing. Not a lot of rain in our forecast. In fact, the heat warning from Environment Canada continued for our region today. But there's a bit of a reprieve with some gusty winds on the way. Complete weather details are coming up. The UV index has been quite high the past couple of days. Hopefully you're loading up and lots of that sunscreen. Jeanette Rocher is back with a full look at the weather forecast for southwestern Alberta and across the country. Jeanette, the beautiful summer-like conditions continue for Lethbridge.
Yeah, that's for sure. In fact, Environment Canada has issued a heat warning for southern Alberta as temperatures will be climbing into the low to mid 30s this week. Even the overnight lows are looking at 15 to 20 degrees, so it should be a warm one for us for sure. On Wednesday, however, at certain times during the day, those temperatures a little bit more moderate. We're sitting at 28 tomorrow, climbing back up to the 30s for Thursday, and lots of sunshine as well. 32 the high for Thursday, 33 on Friday, all the way up to 34 on Saturday, 32 on Sunday, and rounding out the 7-day forecast on Monday at 29 degrees with a mix of sun and clouds. So we are certainly higher than the average high for this time of year, which is 26 degrees right here. 11 degrees is the average low for this time of year. 37 was our high temperature, though, back in 1939, and in 1997, it was only 5 degrees. Sun rose this morning just before 6 a.m., right at 5:55, and our sunset this evening 9:20 p.m., giving us less than 16 hours, but certainly more than 15 hours of daylight. Now, over on the west coast, we're seeing an increasing a high ridge pressure system moving in. It's going to be bringing intense temperatures to the west coast here. Temperatures should be 3 to 5 degrees hotter than they were today. Lots of sunshine, so it's going to get a little bit warmer there. Edmonton sitting at 28 tomorrow, 26 the high for Calgary. Calgary looking a little hazy tomorrow as well. Same thing for the rest of the prairies here. Saskatoon and Regina looking at hazy conditions tomorrow. Sunny with a 20 kilometer per hour winds, 27 in Saskatoon, 30 in Regina, 29 degrees in Winnipeg with a 30% chance of showers. Looking at a risk of thunderstorms as well there. Mix of sun and cloud in Toronto, 25 the high, 25 also the high in Ottawa tomorrow, and a beautiful 24 degrees in Montreal tomorrow with lots of sunshine. Over on the west coast, we are seeing a chance of some showers, particularly in Halifax, Charlottetown, and St. John's tomorrow. Fredericton, though, sitting at 23, mix of sun and cloud, 19 Halifax, 21 in Charlottetown, 23 degrees in St. John's with 40 kilometer per hour winds as well. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather is brought to you by Jeff Reimer of Royal LePage South Country Real Estates, 403-380-1779.
Ottawa's plan to reopen the border to non-essential travelers from the U.S. on August the 9th is in jeopardy thanks to a labor dispute at the Canadian Border Service Agency. The union representing 9,000 service workers says its members voted in favor of strike action to back contract demands after negotiations broke down in December. Officials say members may strike as early as August the 6th. The union warns that the labor dispute could cause a disruption to the flow of goods, services, and people entering Canada. Tech Resources missed expectations even though it recorded a profit of $260 million in the second quarter. That was up from a loss of $149 million a year earlier as revenue surged 50.5% to $2.56 billion. The increase is attributable to a $147 million reduction in COVID-19 costs and $38 million in inventory write-downs. The Vancouver-based mining company says its adjusted profit was $339 million, or 63 cents per share, just shy of the 65 cents analysts were expecting. Walt Disney has announced it's closing at least 60 stores across North America, including most of its locations in Canada. The mass media and entertainment conglomerate says the move is part of a plan to focus on its e-commerce business and reduce its brick-and-mortar footprint. The Disney store has 16 locations in Canada listed on its website, and 12 either shut down or slated to close around August the 18th. The International Monetary Fund is upgrading its economic outlook this year for the world's wealthiest countries as COVID-19 vaccinations help sustain solid rebounds. The lending agency, however, has downgraded its forecast for poorer countries.
Upward revision of 0.6. Now, we also expect that growth.
The global economic recovery continues, but with a widening gap between advanced economies and many emerging market and developing economies. Our latest global growth forecast of 6% for this year is unchanged from the previous outlook, but the composition has changed. Growth prospects for advanced economies this year have improved by 0.5 percentage point, but this is offset exactly by a downward revision for emerging market and developing economies, driven by a significant downgrade for emerging Asia. For 2022, we project global growth of 4.9%, up from our previous forecast of 4.4%.
Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 8 points on the day to finish at 20,173. The Dow was down 85 points to 35,058. The S&P 500 was down 20 points to 4401, and the Nasdaq was down 180 points to 14,660. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 26 cents to 71.65 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 13 cents to 3.97 US. Gold was up 4 cents to 17.9914 US an ounce, and silver was even at 24.70 US an ounce. Wheat is at $398 per metric ton, barley's at $400, canola's at $8.98, and corn is at $435 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 53 cents to 122.93. Feeder cattle were down $1.50 to 160.70, and lean hogs were up 8 cents to 107.48. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 79.35 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the province announced it is using $4.7 million through Emissions Reduction Alberta to create a new $28.6 million facility here in Lethbridge. It will help produce an estimated 70 million litres of high-value renewable fuel. Officials say it'll be the first of its kind in Canada, turning agricultural waste, animal fats, and used cooking oil into biodiesel fuel and glycerin. Officials say the facility will buy more than $375 million of feedstock from farmers over the next 5 years, creating $500 million in revenue and 130 local jobs. Even though the U.S. military is pulling out of Afghanistan by the end of August, it is still offering airstrikes to support Afghan troops. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will have details for us in just a moment. As U.S. troops continue to pull out of Afghanistan, more journalists are apparently going into hiding. To discuss this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, the Taliban is spreading its wings, which is impacting many areas of Afghanistan, including one region where a local radio station shut its doors.
Yes, this is, each day we hear more and more stories about women and journalists and all sorts of different groups that are going to be affected. Well, let me tell you the bottom line. Everyone will be affected because the Taliban is ready to swoop in. What do I mean by even swoop in? They're there already, right? They have been there already. This will just make them more comfortable to spread out and to make themselves at home. We knew this was coming, and it hasn't even been a formal, evacuation of U.S. troops and other foreign troops yet, but we've already seen the effects. We've already seen the Taliban get comfortable, come in for raids, steal laptops, steal all the furniture that the U.S. left behind from one air base that it emptied out. But we knew this was coming. It's going to be for any freedom-loving individual, whether it's a journalist, it's a radio station, women, children, schools, they're all going to be affected. So we'll see what the next chapter holds for the people of Afghanistan.
So Lisa, even though the U.S. military is pulling out of Afghanistan by the end of August, the military is still offering more air support to Afghan forces in their fight against the Taliban. Tell me more about that.
Right. So the date to pull out of Afghanistan it's a single day on the calendar, but the reality on the ground is it paints a very different picture. It's not something where the U.S. can, let its hair down and walk out and say, we've done our job here. We're leaving it in a situation that is much worse than we found it, perhaps, and in a situation where the turmoil, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any stability there anytime soon. So for that reason, they've decided to provide some support to the Afghan people and the government, and to offer airstrikes on the Taliban and see if they can at least try to diminish the threat or diminish the size. But this is like playing whack-a-mole. If you're trying to get them now, they're going to sprout up like weeds much, much more, and they're going to continue doing so. They've been waiting for this moment. So it's something they've been preparing for, and something like this is not going to deter them, unfortunately, although it's a nice symbolic gesture.
Now, Lisa, in light of the transition Afghanistan is going through, the Afghan government is imposing a month-long curfew across almost the entire country in a bid to stop the Taliban from invading cities. How will that curfew actually help?
Yeah, it's interesting. So what the Afghan government realized is that they are expanding and moving across, like you mentioned, Hal, in your initial question, very, very quickly. They are just trying to sprawl out as fast as they can to develop their network all across the country in all different areas. So by imposing this curfew, they think that they can stop or arrest or, at least confront some of the Taliban members, maybe deter them from moving so quickly, just to slow the progress somewhat. Look, the people of Afghanistan are willing to do whatever it takes. So if it's a curfew, if it's a month-long curfew, a 2-month-long curfew, they're coming right out of COVID. It's something that the people are willing to tolerate in order to, again, minimize or diminish this threat of a terror organization taking over their entire country.
And what a lot of us here are concerned about in the West is all of the terror cells which will be forming and growing in Afghanistan as the Taliban takes over and the U.S. troops pull out.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what has been going on. While the US was there, along with other Western allies, the Taliban felt comfortable to do what it did, meaning they were at the negotiating table with the U.S. They were at the negotiating table with the at the UN with the Afghan people. Whenever there was an opportunity to have a formal diplomatic, conversation, they were there. But at the same time, they would go back and launch another suicide attack the next day. So it was, business as usual for them. But at the same time, they tried to maintain this facade of a formal government group. And that's exactly what they were preparing for, to say, we're the only game in town. If you want to talk about the future of Afghanistan, you can't eliminate us from the conversation. And for that reason, the U.S. did include them in ceasefire talks and in talks about the future of the country. The U.S. was hoping that, look, maybe they are, the only game in town. Maybe they are the best organized group. Maybe they do understand the people of Afghanistan, which is not true. And now that we see what they're really about, obviously, they're a terror organization, and they've shown their true colors, and they have shown not to be worthy of this trust and responsibility that the West has wanted or hoped that they could impart on them. And the calculation for the West is, if we can't get rid of them, let's see if we can work with them. And for that reason, now that the U.S. is pulling out formally and the statement has been made, they know that it's free play for them. So they're going to go and do what they've always been doing, but do it much more freely.
Lisa, the Biden administration has indicated it will withdraw combat troops from Iraq, but it doesn't have combat troops there. In fact, pro-Iran militias say they believe the U.S. government is being misleading.
Iran calling out the United States? Never. This is yet another proxy war that the Iranian regime is involved in. And the reason why I say another is because people don't really draw or connect the dots here, understanding what the Iranian regime is capable of doing, what they have been doing for decades in the Middle East, and more recently this past decade, where they are supporting the Houthis in Yemen, they're supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon, they're supporting Hamas in Gaza, they're supporting insurgencies in Iraq, they're supporting insurgencies obviously in Syria and propping up Bashar al-Assad's regime there, and the list goes on. And this is in addition to supporting the one-off suicide bombers around the world. They are the #1 state sponsor of terror. And they are hovering over Iraq, and they did so when the U.S. pulled out of Iraq. And now if we have assets there that are, dwindling, they threaten us about those too. I mean, every other day you hear about U.S. bases or U.S. assets being threatened by the Iranian regime, a retaliatory hit on the pro-Iran militias there by the U.S., a proxy war by all means. And you'll remember that the United States had a few big strikes against the Iranian regime in Iraq. Qasem Soleimani being one of them, al-Baghdadi being another, for the Iraqis and for terror altogether, but for ISIS rather. But I think that it's a place where the U.S. has done a lot of its symbolic hits against the Iranian regime before getting involved, obviously, into a full-fledged war. At the same time, we want to juxtapose the fact that the U.S. is sitting at the negotiating table with the Iranian regime, hoping to strike a nuclear deal, hoping to normalize relations. And we don't talk about these other confrontations between the U.S. and the Iranian regime, but they're focused on getting that deal deal. So we hope that the Biden administration sees all of this. We hope that they see what's going on in Iran by the Iranian regime and what they're doing, more importantly, around the world and in the Middle East.
Israeli strikes have reportedly killed a Hezbollah military commander and an Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps senior official. Lisa, the military commander was allegedly killed in western Syria, and the Lebanese terrorist group confirmed his death.
Yes, it was a huge hit. And this yet another proxy war, right? I don't know if people have been following the fact that Israel has had very targeted, and I repeat, very targeted strikes in Syria on weapons depots, on assets that are pro-Iranian or pro-Iranian regime, I should say, there. And as I said, Iran has a very important presence in Syria. They are propping up the Bashar al-Assad regime there, so they are, they've fortified their bases there. And Israel does what it needs to, meaning it goes in with pinpointed targets to take out these weapons depots. Why? Because they know that they're pointed at Israel. And in doing so, in one of these targeted attacks, they were able to get a Hezbollah commander. And this attack was confirmed, as you said, and a huge win and gain for the Israelis, and a huge gain for people who are anti-terror. So it's a day to celebrate that.
Now, closer to home, California's largest fire continues to burn homes. The massive Dixie Fire, which began on July 14th, has already leveled at least a dozen homes, Lisa. Fire officials say the blaze had charged close to 772 square kilometers of timber and brush in Plumas and Butte counties, and it's only around 21% contained.
Yes, this is, this is fire season for us here in California. Today, actually, we had rain, which was, it's not seasonal to have rain in the summer here. So it was nice to hopefully that benefited the people fighting the fires over there. And we just hope that they can contain this faster than it has been, because obviously it's in a residential area. This is in Northern California, but we do have fires here in Southern California as well. The fire that you speak of in Northern California over the weekend, a smaller fire and a more massive one kind of united, they merged. That's why you're seeing that, that big chaotic fire that's only 21%. That's why I guess the percentage of containment, I should say, went down, because they weren't able to get this in time before it merged. But we are thinking about all the firefighters out there. We hope that the weather stays cooler so that it does not get worse, and so that they're able to put this out sooner rather than later.
We've had a lot of the wildfire smoke make its way here to southern Alberta from British Columbia, the fires in Oregon, and of course some of the fires you talked about in California. How's the air quality index where you are?
It's not too bad, actually. And as I said, again, because of the rain today, I think we're going to have even clearer skies tomorrow. Look, smog is a way of life here, so it's not anything new. But the fires, and when we have fire season, there are days where we are warned not to leave home. And the past few years have been that bad, but we're not there right now. We still have blue skies. When it's not raining, we have blue skies. And yeah, we're not seeing the smoke. Although if there is a small fire here or there, which we have had in the past few weeks, you do see the smoke, but it's usually for about 24 hours.
Lisa, more than 112 people have died in a western state in India following torrential monsoon rains, causing massive landslides and flooding in low-lying areas, impacting hundreds upon hundreds of villages.
Yes, India can't catch a break here. This is awful. Actually, for natural disasters, we had a section on our morning bulletin this morning with half a dozen natural disasters around the world, from flooding to monsoons and other things. And India, this is an awful story, because you have so many casualties, and that's partially because of the lack of proper infrastructure in these areas. And as you know, it's already such a hard hit area with COVID, and just proper care, proper evacuation strategies, proper hospitalization and other health equipment and things like that. So we're thinking of them and hoping that this lets up soon.
Lisa, I was watching a recent report on Fox News talking about how, a lot of the mainstream media in the United States is discussing defunding the police and the benefits of such. But in Detroit, Michigan, a recent poll said around 80% of people want to see more police being hired and increasing the budget to police in Michigan.
Yeah. I've seen so many of these reports and so many stories that would support the report that you speak of, meaning people are completely regretful about the defund the police movement here in the United States. I mean, in all major cities, you're seeing crime up 300, 400, 500%. Areas that have been safe to walk during the day, to just, people, children and dogs walking. There are actual armed robberies here in Los Angeles. I know in New York City, a lot of friends tell me it's the same way. And of course, inner cities like Chicago and Detroit are facing the same thing. So it's not surprising that when you see these crazy, crazy ideologies, when people just spew some garbage about, yes, defund the police, they're awful, they kill innocent people, then when they see it in action and in practice, how it is just destroying our societies. It is making everything so chaotic. And add to that the fact that they allow people to steal under $1,000. You can just walk into any place and steal whatever you want. It's a jungle. So we're promoting anarchy. We're promoting this chaos. And I'm glad this poll came up. But what's this poll going to do? They've hired community organizers and such. People that aren't trained to do anything but receive a paycheck in lieu of this money that's going to police officers and to police stations. And they'll have to reverse this. It's not going to be easy, but they'll have to reverse it because our cities are demanding that we do so immediately.
Our foreign affairs expert and political reporter, Lisa Daftari, thanks again for joining us from your LA, Los Angeles.
My pleasure. Thank you.
When there's work to be done and not enough budget to hire workers, what do? Well, we hope to get some volunteers, naturally. Volunteers make a world of difference to so many people in different situations. Joining us to discuss this further is Amanda Jensen, Executive Director of Volunteer Lethbridge. Welcome to the show, Amanda. So great to have you on with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So first of all, can you maybe tell us a little bit about Volunteer Lethbridge?
Absolutely. Volunteer Lethbridge, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. So we've been in the community for quite some time, and we do some things that you would naturally expect me to say. So it's our mandate, it's our vision and mission to connect volunteers to volunteer opportunities in the community, which really strengthens the fabric of a community when you have that involvement and engagement. And like you said, it also supports the nonprofit organizations who rely on volunteers to accomplish their missions. But we also do some things that maybe aren't so well known. So another thing that another part of our mission is to support nonprofit organizations in achieving their mission, and we call that, capacity building. So we offer training, we offer supports around volunteerism, but also around other aspects of nonprofit management, so that we can engage and support and help grow our nonprofit organizations within our community. And we're also quite involved with advocacy work in our community, but also provincially and nationally. We are connected to Volunteer Alberta, to Volunteer Canada, and Imagine Canada, so that we can make sure that the voice of Southern Alberta is heard at the tables where it needs to be heard.
Wow. Well, you guys obviously are doing a lot. What types of groups and organizations are typically coming to you because they need those volunteers? Of course, you mentioned the nonprofits.
Yeah, Volunteer Lethbridge has, we have about 160 nonprofit member organizations with us. And so that's who we're supporting. And so those nonprofit organizations, really run the gamut between grassroots, no employees, totally board driven, potentially a smaller budget, up to, organizations that run, millions of dollars in operating budgets and, have a full staff. So there's quite a diversity in the nonprofit organizations that we serve. But, they come to us for, just the opportunities to volunteer are just so varied. So board members would be one definite place where we're constantly helping organizations recruit so that they can, be strong and govern wisely. But then you think of volunteers like in the soup kitchen or in the food bank. They're doing coolie cleanup. They may be doing some office work. So there's just so many ways that volunteers can interact with our community.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned board members, because that's not something I wouldn't have thought of, that you would be recruiting people through volunteer lethbridge. So that's really interesting. Now, of course, like we all know that volunteering has some great benefits, health benefits, even like mentally, emotionally, physically. We know that it does good for you, but I would imagine you and I were talking a little bit before, like off camera, about the pandemic and how that really affected volunteerism. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yes, what we were talking about, the older adult population specifically, really hit hard by the pandemic, as we know, in so many ways. But when we're talking about volunteerism, seniors are the largest cohort of volunteers that we have in our community and in most communities. And when you're accustomed to being engaged and involved and contributing, and then to have to step back from that is, I believe, what we're hearing, really challenging for a number of seniors who would normally, like I say, be engaged and involved. So it was sort of a double whammy for some of our community members. We were also talking about loneliness and isolation, and how, I mean, truly, that's an ongoing problem. It's been a problem for, I wouldn't even guess how long, but it's not a new problem, but certainly was made worse by the pandemic. And so one thing that Volunteer Lethbridge did to try to alleviate some of those feelings of loneliness and isolation is to start the Keep in Touch program, whereby it's a volunteer calling program, as you might well imagine, and volunteers would call their match or their friend, or however you want to refer to it, once or twice a week, and really for a phone call and for that touch with the outside world, and just have a nice conversation. But what we also found is that the loneliness and isolation was so deep for some that they really needed connections to outside sources, whether it be food security or housing security or mental health issues, etc. So we have become a bit of a referral source for some of those participants in our programs. So what it also did was allowed those seniors who were accustomed to volunteering to volunteer in a safe way from their own home, and still be able to have that connection to service and the benefits of volunteering. So yeah, the feedback that we've had from the seniors themselves, for some it's a nice to have. It brightens their day. The feedback is 100% positive, but there are some of those special stories that always touch your heart about how it's really changed their lives, and they feel a sense of hope, and they have something to look forward to. I know one senior recently told us that her week doesn't start until she talks to that volunteer. So whether that's Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day it is, like that's when she feels like her week begins. And so sometimes we just don't realize what an impact volunteerism makes.
Absolutely, completely. Now as we're sort of somewhat coming out of the pandemic, are you noticing that more people are coming out to want to volunteer? Did you see less people coming out during the pandemic? Were organizations not needing them as much, or were they needing them even more because some of their workers were gone?
Well, that's a really interesting question. And that was the assumption that we all had to make so many assumptions at the beginning of the pandemic, because we'd never experienced something like that before. And it was my assumption that the organizations were having to let staff go, and that they would need more volunteers. And what we found actually was the opposite, because in many cases, the volunteer budget, if an organization was fortunate enough to have a volunteer manager, somebody dedicated to that work, or simply just any resources they would put towards a volunteerism program, were the first to either be cut or to be reallocated somewhere else more pressing in the organization. And so the capacity of nonprofit organizations to manage volunteers really plummeted. And I'm speaking sort of nationally, like that's what we're hearing from research that has been done on a national level, but certainly I think we felt that here in Lethbridge as well. So volunteerism, the opportunities really plummeted, and of course, the fear of that interaction that people had during the pandemic and may still be feeling certainly kept people from reaching out to serve. And so now, as you say, as we're starting to come out of it, we are seeing a great uptick in the number of volunteer opportunities available, and certainly more people returning to some semblance of normal life. And for many people, normal life involves volunteerism, thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Amanda, I noticed on your website, it makes mention of how volunteering can be a helpful thing for new immigrants to Canada as well. This is something maybe we don't think about, but it makes sense.
The research proves it out that it's a fantastic way for new Canadians to learn about their new community. Potentially, if they're learning English, it's a great non-threatening or less threatening way to learn the language and feel comfortable to meet new people. So, but when we talk about volunteerism, like you say, sometimes we spoke a little bit about board service, that we're really trying to, that's an area that Volunteer Lethbridge is looking to move into, is encouraging more new Canadians to be board members. Board leadership, board service is a great leadership training opportunity, and will often lead to other leadership opportunities and ways to connect with community. So for instance, if you have a local council person, for instance, they likely had learning opportunities that may have involved board service before taking on, that somewhat larger leadership role. And so the more diverse and inclusive that we can make our nonprofit boards, we're building leadership capacity in our community, which is really powerful. So you'll see some new programming over the next 6 months, even to encourage new Canadians to become involved, but also then to work with nonprofit organizations to be inclusive and to know what it means to be inclusive and equitable. And many of us think of ourselves in that way, but we may not know how to, put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, when, we might not know what our biases are, or just how to welcome new people into our fold. So, yeah.
Amanda, can you maybe explain how someone considering volunteering could maybe get started? What's the process?
Well, connect with Volunteer Lethbridge. So that's hit our website, volunteerlethbridge.com. You could also give us a call if speaking to somebody is more preferable. But if you just want to get an idea of what volunteer opportunities there are, checking out the website is a great place to start. Then you can start picturing yourself in some of those roles, and narrowing down what you might want to do. And when it's time to get serious, when somebody is ready to actually begin, there's a volunteer application form on our website, and that just puts the volunteers into our system so that we can communicate effectively about new opportunities that might be coming up if that is desired, and just keep in touch. So I would say that's a really good way are a good place to start. But we also have people on staff that, if volunteering is a new idea and it feels a little bit, overwhelming, or you're not sure, we have just such warm-hearted, smart, lovely people in our office that are just willing to have a conversation as well.
Wow, that's wonderful. Now, I understand that Volunteer Lethbridge has also implemented a screening process just to make sure everyone's protected. Can you maybe share a little bit about why this is necessary and how it works?
It's a bit of a game changer for volunteer centers in Canada. So we are starting something very new here and trailblazing and trying something out, which is stepping into that screening world. There's a lot of back and forth between the organization and the potential volunteer before that volunteer can even start to be onboarded. So what Volunteer Lethbridge is doing is removing that work from the nonprofit organization so that by the time they get to the organization, they're ready to be onboarded and ready to go. So we are trying to reduce the strain on our nonprofit members by doing this. But what's really awesome about this is that it's also so beneficial for the volunteer. So many volunteers volunteer at more than one organization.
So instead of having 3 different places do the process, you guys are doing one. Okay, so yeah, you're cutting out that extra work for them. Mm-hmm.
Totally, and it just makes it so much easier for the volunteer to move more freely within the community, and reducing a strain on the Lethbridge Police Service with criminal record checks, etc. So it's just a win-win for everybody. But it's new, so it'll be interesting because we'll probably make a mistake or two. We're cutting new ground here, but it's really exciting.
Well, I wish you all the best with that. Thanks so much for being with us today, Amanda. Great to have you on.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda Jensen is the Executive Director of Volunteer Lethbridge. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.